today. I am Director of Programs at Trees Forever. And so I help oversee all of our programs across Iowa and Illinois. And I'll just jump right into the presentation here and tell you a little bit more about Trees Forever. So I know Barb really well. Barb took our Tree Keepers class and may have been the person who suggested that I come talk with you today. So thanks, Barb. Nice to see you. And again, I'm Leslie Burkus, Director of Programs at Trees Forever. Some of you have probably seen a little bit more of Trees Forever here in the Des Moines metro area over the past few years. If you've seen the green buckets sitting out next to trees around the city, that is Trees Forever. And I will talk a little bit more about that as we go through. And I'm really happy that I could be your last virtual presentation as you guys transition to your in-person ones again. So thanks for sticking through all those virtual meetings the past year. Well, if you're not completely familiar beyond the green buckets of Trees Forever, we are a statewide nonprofit, and we also work into Illinois. So there are many, many tree nonprofits across the country that are focused on trying to get more trees into our landscape, especially in larger urban areas. So there's groups in Atlanta, New York, San Francisco, Sacramento, groups in North Carolina, Tulsa. I mean, they're all over. There's lots of tree nonprofits around the country, all dedicated, like I said, to getting more trees into our urban areas and our rural areas. So here in Iowa, Trees Forever has planted 3.4 million trees since 1989 when we were founded. Every year we engage about 7,000 volunteers to plant and care for trees. We are a 501c3 and based in Marion, Cedar Rapids area, but then we have an office here in Des Moines. It's kitty corner from the new Come and Go building downtown by the Sculpture Park. And we have a staff of 20 across Iowa and Illinois. The work we do is really just focused on trying to engage more people to plant trees in their area, to be environmental stewards, be that pollinator plantings, tree plantings, roadside plantings. And we work with about 200 plus communities every year to make that happen. So we manage Alliant Energy and Black Hills Energy's tree planting programs. So if a community is within an Alliant service territory, they could apply to grants for us to help put more trees into their communities. And I'll go into why they might want to do that here in a second, but that's just an example of those types of towns we work with. I already mentioned the 7,000 volunteers, and we are able to give out about $650,000 in grants every year because of those supporters that we have that allow us to re-grant out funding. Right now, one of our biggest efforts is to raise money for Planting Hope, which is our funding to help derecho impacted communities. So right now, our latest estimates are that 4 million trees were lost across the state from the August 2020 derecho. In a state that can't really afford to lose any trees, we lost a lot. And then Trees Forever's headquarters in 609,000 trees in that city. I know at the time we thought we got hit here pretty hard in Des Moines, but I would say, I think you might agree that we might have lost branches. I lost a tree in my backyard. So there was some damage, but not nearly to what happened kind of along that Highway 30 corridor. And I'm not sure if anyone traveled and saw some of that damage. It's pretty stark. So with that, as we see all these trees lost, why should a community want to replant? Why should you want to replant in your backyard? Why do you just want to plant trees in general? It's definitely, there's a lot of people who just love trees for the beauty they provide, but there's a lot of people we talk to who don't want trees, quite a few. And we can go into some of those reasons why. Some of them are understandable, but we like to look at the cost benefit calculation between trees. And some of that's just more emotional. Some of it can get down to dollars and cents. So depending on who you're talking to, you could go after the emotional side or that dollars and cents. So straight away, we could look right at dollars and cents and what a city council or a mayor might be interested in. This is the city of Des Moines tree mapping system. You can go to this at any time, DesMoinesIA.mytreekeeper.com. And you'll see a map that looks fairly similar to this, and every single tree that's publicly owned in the city of Des Moines has been mapped. It's really critical. We're very fortunate to have this within the city. because it helps us manage a resource. If we don't know where our trees are, how can we possibly find them again? How can we possibly tell the story about where we planting, where we need to plant? Within Des Moines, there are 49, almost 50,000 trees in publicly owned space, city right-of-way, that grassy strip between the sidewalk and the street, or in parks, or some other publicly owned areas like along storm detention basins, that type of thing. Because of research done by US Forest Service, it's called iTree. Every single tree we plant has been researched to tell us how much it pays us back. And in the city of Des Moines, our trees, those 50,000 trees, every year are paying us back in over $5 million in eco-service benefits. Eco-service benefits on its own sounds like kind of a weird term, but really what it's saying is that those big sycamores on Polk Boulevard take up a lot of water. They need a lot of water to grow. And so they suck up lots of water. All the trees in our city combined suck up 58 million gallons of water every year. Because they take up that water or intercept it in their canopy, it doesn't go into the storm drain. And therefore, they don't have to treat it down at the end of the line, which saves us all money. Because it shades our homes to the tune of $1.5 million every year, shades our homes and businesses, that helps you and me avoid running our air conditioner as much, especially on days like today and the next week. Or it puts up a wind barrier around our home so we don't have to have our furnace up as high. And you see all of those different benefits. I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail. But again, you can go to this website, and when you do, you can type in your address. If you have a tree in front of your home and you live in Des Moines, here's my address, 4334 Franklin Avenue. And here is my little tree I can click on. So this is just a screenshot, but I could click right here. And it would pop up this little circle, and I could click here and go into more information so that I can see my little bur oak or swamp white oak tree that was planted at the time it was mapped, provided not that much money, $8.73 a year in services. That's water saved, air quality, property benefits, etc. That's when the tree is very small. This tree is going to get bigger, and it's going to get as big as this sycamore that's on my favorite walking route on 45th Street. This large sycamore, my tree was 2 inches DBH. That's diameter at breast height. That's just a universal measurement for trees. This sycamore is 49 inches at diameter at breast height, and it is paying that neighbor and all of us back $346 a year. So you can see how they start adding up. One tree in front of our home might not be a lot, but when we combine it across an entire urban forest, and we live in a forest, it's just an urban one. All those trees around us make up the forest we get to live in. When we combine all those trees, that's how we get up to that $5 million that those trees give us in environmental services every year. So I'm going to go into a little more tree benefits, and this is one of my favorite comics. I just think it's really funny because there's a person on a nature walk within a city, and he's saying it's called a tree, and they provide a vital function in the ecosystem by providing a natural anchor to chain up trash cans. And here's this person taking a photo of this majestic, mysterious tree in the urban environment. So we know, I hope we all know, that they provide a little bit more than that to us. So I already talked about energy efficiency. If you, I think hopefully you have some trees around your home right now. Actually, I live in a very small Beaverdale lot. I don't have that many trees on my property. I can't get them spaced very well. And I certainly can't get them spaced like I would like to, which is on the east and west side of my home, so that I could be providing solar protection from morning and afternoon sun. And we know that shade trees can save 25 to 30% on summer cooling bills. And if you have just 3 well-placed trees around your property, like this one that's shading the home and shading this hard concrete, so the surface, so it's not absorbing the heat and radiating it back to the building, 3 well-placed trees could save $100 to $250 on energy bills every year. We know trees in shopping districts cause people to make longer, more frequent shopping trips. and they'll spend 12% more on goods and services while they're there. This is Ingersoll Avenue. If you've driven on along there, you have those really beautiful trees. It attracts people to that shopping area. East Village is another one that comes to mind to me, of lots of trees. You might not go there because of the trees, but you might think about the sense that those areas give you. And if you stop and think about it, do those trees add to the beauty, the walkability, the reasons you want to go shop there? Or maybe just think about when you're at the parking lot and you're driving around, trying to find that one parking spot that has trees there. All those types of things add up to why people spend money or go certain places where there are trees. And we know that healthy, mature trees can increase property values by 10 to 15%. This is really valuable for you as a homeowner, or if you are a homeowner, because if you have well-maintained trees on your property, people are willing to spend 10 to 15% more on properties where there are trees. You might not like hearing this other side of it, but it's a benefit to the city. When your property value goes up, your taxes go up. That's a benefit to the cities and the counties. I know maybe we don't like that, but it does make our cities function, of course, and makes our city officials happy, who might in turn give money back into giving more money for trees. We know that trees are really beneficial to us from a roadway perspective. One study found a 40% decrease in crash rates because of trees along roadways. That's why one of the reasons we plant trees along our city streets. Just one of them, there's lots of them, but having those stationary objects that you drive past helps you monitor your speed. I often think about driving down MLK here in Des Moines. It's 6 lanes of traffic. There's not that many trees, and I can't tell how fast I just go because it's wide open space for me to drive. When you have tighter streets and you have trees along that, you can sense your speed because you're hitting a tree, not literally, but you're going past it, and you can feel that how fast you're going. Plus, it kind of encloses you a little bit more, and it helps people pay better attention. Is there something going on here? I need to be looking at my surroundings. It helps people pay better attention while they're driving. It's something good for all of us, especially after over a year of COVID, is our mental and physical health. A lot of you probably were out walking a lot more. We know that people who live among trees often get 3 times the amount of physical activity that they're recommended. So that's very good for our health. But we also know that just 3 to 5 minutes spent simply looking at views dominated by trees in nature reduces anger, anxiety, and pain, and induces relaxation. We have an innate connection to nature because of our long ago ancestors spending lots of time outside that we carry with us today. And there's been research done on hospital patients who have views of like a brick wall versus trees. Those patients get out of the hospital faster, they heal faster, and they're nicer to their nurses because they have those views of trees. Now, it's not because trees magically healed them, it's because they were calmer and their immune system was better able to fight off whatever they were in the hospital for. So just you and your day, even if you wanted to look outside of trees, get outside for a little bit, know that your blood pressure is coming down the minute you start doing that. And I have something here called Japanese forest bathing. There's even doctors now, it's in Japan it originated, but there's doctors here in the United States and in Iowa who are prescribing time spent in nature. That's their prescription. Instead of prescribing medication for mental health issues or maybe some physical health issues, because it's proven that people will get some of these benefits from being out in nature, and maybe they can avoid medication because of it. Continuing on with our hot day, you've probably heard of the urban heat island effect, that urban areas are often 7 to 9 degrees hotter than their suburban or rural counterparts. My parents live in a very wooded area north of Waterloo, and every time they come down here, I have to hear about how hot it is in Des Moines. And that's because we have a lot of hard surfaces. We have a lot of buildings that absorb heat and radiate it into our atmosphere. And so planting trees helps with that. And this image is probably just the perfect showcase of this. This is in Celsius, but you can see red is hot, blue is cool. And you can see these hot building roofs compared to where the trees are along the city street and how much cooler it is. and that can radiate back onto our businesses and then help cool them. As we continue to think more about a changing climate and worry about the future of what it might hold for climate change, we're thinking about carbon and the amount of carbon being released into the atmosphere. And trees are certainly one of the superheroes of that. When we think of trees for carbon reduction, it's reduced or avoided carbon. So reduced is just that trees have to take up lots of carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. They take in carbon dioxide and they release oxygen that we breathe. So just taking in that carbon dioxide, the trees hold it in their woody structure, and that retains a lot of carbon within the tree. Avoided carbon is because I shade my home, then I don't have to demand as much energy from the utility company who's burning coal, which adds carbon to the atmosphere. So shading my home reduces how much I demand, how much the utility company has to burn in coal. So that's how we get to that carbon reduction number, is reduced and avoided carbon. What you are seeing in this picture is that when trees come down, they release carbon. So as we're looking at large swaths of the Amazon burning or trees being removed, that not only are we losing that ability for trees to capture carbon, they release carbon when they are cut down or through mulch. So that is something that has to be taken into account when we think of carbon reduction in trees. When we get into stormwater, I mean, superheroes of the green world, when we look at thinking about water quality and quantity issues, we really want to be focusing on trees in our urban areas, because trees reduce stormwater in 3 ways. First, precipitation comes down, the trees catch it on its leaf surface, and it simply holds it on its leaf surface and it never hits the ground. Now with my little hand, that doesn't seem like that much rain, but when you multiply that by an entire tree canopy or a tree crown, think about all those sycamores on Polk Boulevard. That's a lot of leaf surface for water to be captured on, and then it just evaporates into the air, never falls to the ground. Then water keeps falling through, precipitation comes through, hits the ground. Because I have good root system, I've got nice soil, there's more water that can infiltrate into the ground instead of shooting off into our storm system. So it just infiltrates and recharges our groundwater. And then because of photosynthesis, and every living thing needs water to survive, that tree takes up lots of water, sucks it up through its root system. There's little cells like straws throughout the tree, sucks it up into its leaf surface, and then evapotranspirates it into the air. So that's how we get that cooling effect from trees, because it's evapotranspirating water vapor into the air and helping cool the atmosphere. And here's just a pretty visual chart to show you a crabapple, which is a small tree, red maple, which is a medium, and bur oak, which is a large shade tree, the state tree of Iowa, actually. And all this is to say is that if we can get a big tree in, we'd rather get a big tree in, because at 10 inches, that lighter purple, that's when the tree is all about the same size. That's relatively close for how much stormwater that tree will intercept every year. But when we look at the large mature tree at mature height, the bur oak takes the cake. For over 4,700 gallons of stormwater, one tree will intercept every year, year after year after year. And so that's why we'd rather get large trees in whenever we can, because we know they provide us greater benefits. And I heard you guys talking about ladybugs. Well, there's lots of wildlife that are dependent on trees. Many wildlife who we would not have if it wasn't for the shelter they provide or the food source they provide. So squirrel eating the black cherries in my backyard. Here's a honeybee. I don't know if that's a honeybee, a bee sipping nectar from the redbud tree in my backyard. And unfortunately, this one's not my backyard, but insects are very important for them to have trees. And not only do those insects need the trees, but more importantly, the birds need those insects to feed their young. A clutch of chickadees will need about 10,000 insects to feed their clutch of chickadee over the multiple weeks those young ones are coming to maturity. So if there's no trees to help support those insects, we're not supporting the birds in exchange, and so on and so forth throughout our food web. And the best thing about trees is that their benefits only grow over time. It's not like installing a new furnace, your thermostat, hard infrastructure that depreciates over time. Trees appreciate over time because the bigger they get, the more they provide to us. So one of the best investments that we can make because they are low cost and they only get better as they go. But just imagine if trees gave off Wi-Fi signals, we'd be planting so many trees, we'd probably save the planet too. Too bad they only produce the oxygen we breathe. So one of those things of, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we just recognize trees for the oxygen and everything else they provide us? But we're not there yet, probably. I'm going to move into some tree threats that you're probably thinking of. So not only are we wanting to plant more trees, we're also concerned about a lot of things. And no, we don't have the Moroccan tree climbing goats here, but we do have this little jerk, if I can. He's the emerald ash borer, who you've probably been hearing a lot about over the years. And I've really started noticing ash tree decline in the metro area over the past probably 2 to 3 years. So if you have an ash tree on your property, you should be preparing. And if you haven't already seen decline, you will want to consider treating your tree or removing it. All the cities in the metro area are actively removing trees now because of what's happening. This is the adult insect. It came over on shipping pallet from Asia, came in through Michigan, and has just slowly spread from there. The insect itself can only fly about 2 miles, but people transfer it on firewood, on packaging. They move it across the country a lot faster. So adult insect feeds on the leaves, not too much damage, but then lays an egg. The larva, this is the larva, hatches out underneath the bark. And so here is a tree that's been stripped of bark, and all these tunnels are from the insect, the larva eating. We have native borers, so it's not strange to have this, but emerald ash borer did not evolve with our trees, and they make a very distinct S-shape serpentine tunnel. That's how we know that it's emerald ash borer, if we see this S shape, or the larva has a bell shape to it. And what's happening is it's eating and cutting off all the cells across the tree, and right under the bark is where the tree moves water and food up and down. And by doing that, it's essentially strangling the tree, and the tree can't move water up, and it can't move food from its leaves down, and it's slowly dying because of that. We can certainly talk about this a little bit more. A lot of people have questions about emerald ash borer, so we can come back to it at the end, or if anyone has questions now. You probably won't see the adult. It's very small. It fits on the head of a penny on Lincoln's head, so you really won't see that. You'll see more of the decline symptoms, which is the canopy dying back, leaves dying, shoots coming out of the bottom, which is essentially the tree's last gasp. It's saying, I'm dying, I need to make more food for myself, and it puts out more leaves. Or you'll see flecking of the bark. You'll see white spots, and that's actually woodpeckers seeking out the larvae, and they fleck off the bark, and you'll see these kind of white, lighter brown spots on the trees. Not only are we dealing with emerald ash borer, we're also dealing with bur oak blight, oak wilt. We're concerned about thousand cankers disease in the upper right here, which is not here in Iowa, but it does attack walnut trees. Every year, Iowa exports about $2 billion worth of wood, a lot of that being walnut across the globe. So if something came for our very, very valuable walnut trees, it'd be very devastating to our economy. And then just natural disasters like flooding, derecho, things that cause damage to trees and causes it in sequential years and can really cause trees to decline. We do lots of bad things to trees. We cut off their roots when we put in new sidewalks so they can't anchor themselves anymore. We hit them with our lawnmowers, and now we've damaged the bark, and now this tree can no longer move nutrients up here. And so it cuts off this tree's ability, can only focus on the other sides. If you did this all the way around the tree, you would kill it. We pave up to it, and so now there's no way for this tree to get any water or nutrients. And not only that, but now it's starting to crack the sidewalk as it grows. we plant them where we shouldn't, under power lines, and then the utility company has to come and trim away the tree and causes stress to that tree. We continue to have development where you have large groves of trees and we put new homes within those and we lose trees. And the trees, all these trees were naturally insulated together and they form units because of that. Now they're vulnerable because they don't have any sort of the wind protection they had before. So these often will be weaker trees here and could blow over or not be as strong because they don't have all their windbreak trees around them. And then we start thinking more about tree inequity, something that Trees Forever is really concerned about, and it's kind of a national trend, as looking at how trees are not equally distributed across our cities. They tend to follow wealth. And here's a headline from 2019 from NPR. As rising heat bakes US cities, the poor often feel it the most. So this is Minneapolis, St. Paul. And you can see where the lighter color is cooler, the darker is hotter, and this will correlate to income levels. So you can see some of these probably more wealthier suburbs outside of the city where they are cooler, and then you see higher median incomes where their heat and income relate. Now we can add on tree canopy on top of this. This is Louisville, Kentucky. Just draw your attention probably more to the downtown core, but low tree canopy cover, very hot, and low income. So trees are key to fighting urban heat, but cities keep losing them. So again, trees follow wealth. We see that here in Des Moines. This is the Beaverdale neighborhood. And then this is Riverbend neighborhood, a medium income neighborhood, and then a low to moderate income neighborhood. And you can see the stark difference in tree canopy here just within our city. I know that there's a park setting here, but we know, again, trees increase property values. So this is where you start putting all the pieces together. Higher property values where people can afford trees, lower property values, not as many trees, communities getting hotter because of this. And people often think of tornadoes or earthquakes or hurricanes as big natural disasters that unfortunately cause loss of life. Natural disaster that takes the most loss of life is actually heat. And so as we look at a changing climate, warmer cities, this is something to be really concerned about. And unless you think I'm cherry picking a couple spots within our city, this is a global trend of, you can look at a Google image and you could tell the income level of this community based off its tree cover. Here's Rio de Janeiro, a wealthier neighborhood versus a very low income community. Beijing, same thing, low income versus high income. You could see this just by aerial images of where the trees are. You can probably pinpoint where the wealthier neighborhoods are. So as we're looking at this, Trees Forever saying, what could we do to be part of the solution here? And so we launched our Growing Futures program here in Des Moines, where we're employing teenagers to plant and care for trees around the city. We manage the city's tree planting contract, and we're really working on trying to incorporate more tree equity across our city and focusing on places where they need more trees. And we don't want to go and say, good news, we're here with trees. Aren't you happy? We want to be part of the conversation, part of the community, having being within there and not just, forcing people to take trees if they don't want them. And so one solution we're trying to focus on is employing teenagers from those neighborhoods so they're part of the planting within their communities. And so not only does Growing Futures look at tree equity, we're also employing teens and giving them valuable life skills. Our teens plant and water trees throughout the spring, summer, and fall. And in exchange, they get paid a good rate, $10 an hour. They also get professional development every week. And so as we look at these teens becoming our future leaders or our just fellow community members, having them be good, productive members of society, ready to take on their jobs, that's how we see ourselves being a positive role in their lives. And then we get more trees planted because of that as well. So here is a couple of young ladies planting a tree on Grand Avenue, very close to your church, Barb, I think. Here's Trent watering trees in the Birdland area. So one thing to plant trees, we want to make sure they're watered so that they survive and what a valuable resource lives for the long term. Here's Jonathan in a life skills professional development class, learning wilderness survival and CPR training. And here's Davion learning about tree climbing and tree work as a future career. Many of our tree services are seeing not enough workers come into the tree service business, line clearance, or just tree service for your own backyard. So they're seeing a worker shortage coming up. We could show these young people that that could be an option for their future career. Or maybe they want to, because they've been exposed to more environmental work, maybe they choose a different green job career path. So as we think about ways that you guys could be part of more trees in your community, more environmental work, there's a variety of ways that you could help with more tree work in Des Moines or just wherever you might live. We certainly like to have a lot of volunteers. So if you like to dig in the dirt or plant some trees, we'd love to have you come out. If planting's not your thing, you like photography or you like writing, we would love to have you come out and help us with that. Share your skill in a different way that might help promote trees. Learning more about your local tree regulations, the good, bad, ugly, and advocating for trees is so important. If we want more trees, we often need more money. We often need better protection for the trees we have. So you could be an advocate for trees. That could be something as simple as talking to your neighbor about trees, or maybe you want to talk to your city council or your mayor about why they should allocate more funding to it, or why you think more and better ordinances might help protect more trees. I mentioned here, incorporating sustainability and positive environmental habits in your chosen path. Sure, just being greener and trying to incorporate more environmental work every day. But what I mean by this again is if you're a photographer or a writer or something I'm not thinking of, that you might be able to share your skill in another way that's not just going out and planting a tree or digging a hole. You could think about it in a different lens. But still, we do want to plant lots of trees. So maybe planting some more trees in your backyard or your front yard. If we look at our urban forest, most of our trees is in private, most of our land is privately held, your homes, businesses, government buildings. That's why we need more trees there, because only private citizens can plant trees within those private areas. So that's it for me. I'd be happy to take some questions, especially if you have any questions about maybe emerald ash borer or trees in your backyard. I can do my best to help answer them. My contact information is here. And one thing I guess I should mention about the Growing Futures program is if you have a young person in your life, a grandchild or someone you mentor, we are taking applications for people to be part of our Growing Futures crew. They get, again, paid $10 an hour. I think that's a pretty good rate. They get lunch every day. They get professional development training. We'd love to have them be part of our Growing Futures crews.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, perfect. Yes, back to Judy, you're on mute, but go ahead.
Okay, I was wondering if the treatment that's used for the emerald ash borer is effective. We've been doing it to our trees for a couple years now, and we have noticed that the bark at the base of it is peeling off the trees. I don't know if that's normal or not. But how effective is that? And is there a chance that this borer will eventually die off and we won't have to deal with that problem anymore?
Yeah. So the trunk injection method, if that's what you're using, hiring a company, is very effective. It's like 99% effective. Okay. It's a pesticide that helps kill, it takes it up within the tree's surface because it's moving water up and down. It moves the chemical up and down and into the leaves. And so that's what kills the insect, and it is very, very effective. You have to do it every 2 years. That's a lifetime commitment for the tree, but yes, effective. I don't know what might be happening with the bark. I would ask next time they come out and treat if they think something's going on.
Okay.
Because you do want to assess your tree and see if it's a good candidate for treatment. If it's not a very healthy tree, or just, I don't know about your tree, but if anybody, if it wasn't a healthy tree to start with, you're seeing big cracks or dieback, it's probably not worth it to treat that tree unless it was a special one to you for some reason. A memorial tree or really provides a lot of shade to your home might be reasons you'd want to treat.
Mhm.
I really would recommend, if you have room, to replant something else so you get some size, because you might not
Yeah.
want to commit to treating that for its whole lifetime, because that's a long time.
Yeah.
So you could start planting something else and get some size to it while you're treating.
Okay.
As far as if it's going to go away, no. What the last research I heard was that the wave will go through. It's going to keep moving along, and there's no more food for it because it's killed everything in its path, or it's kept moving along and anything that's been treated is still there. And that eventually we might be able to replant our ash trees. DNR has taken native ash tree seeds from the state and sent them across the world to seed banks. So they're frozen and saved. So there's some in Switzerland, and I think there's a seed bank here in the United States where they can freeze them. And then once things change, or if they change, they could replant and propagate again, and we could plant our native ash trees. But as of now, we're just waiting for the wave to come through.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Sue.
Leslie, thank you so much. This has
Yeah.
been very interesting, educational, and informative. A question, and I know part of the reason, but for years, knowing that the ash borer was coming, we've watched what appeared to be perfectly healthy trees cut down.
Mhm.
And my husband and I have talked about it to try to get ahead of it. Hearing that there is treatment possible, maybe the treatment is too expensive, but
Mhm.
it seems like we've seen so many beautiful trees cut down that maybe now we might have saved, or what were the reasons behind
Yeah.
that?
So it's really difficult decisions for cities to make, or homeowners. So ash borer will be 100% mortality to any tree not treated. So was it city-owned trees, or is that what you're kind of?
Well, primarily some
Yeah.
businesses, golf
Yep.
courses,
Yeah.
where there were big stands of ash.
Yep. So a lot of cities would look at their budget or look at what's available, and those trees might not have been as healthy as they appeared. Lots of times people will think a tree looks healthier, but there could have been a big crack down the middle that wouldn't really have been obvious to the naked eye. There's structural issues that might not have been known about. So they might have made a decision, well, it looks healthy, we're going to remove it now, because, well, we know we're going to have to remove it sometime. Let's not get slammed with a huge budget item here at this year. Let's start to gradually take on a few so that we're managing our budget down the line. They also might have made a decision that I'd rather replant now. If it's too big of a tree, that tree might have been reaching the end of its life. So why not remove it now and replant something today and start getting enough growth on it so that I get a big tree that's more diverse. And the treatment is an option. City of Des Moines has been treating their trees, but it's expensive across an entire city. City of Des Moines has 6,000 trees, healthy ash trees. So paying to treat all of those was quite a big budget line item. So they chose that they were going to treat them for a while and then start taking them off the books because of how expensive it was. And we'd rather replant and get something we know is going to be healthier for the long term. So I know it is hard to see those trees come down. And those are some of the decisions that went into it. Some people might still think they're wrong decisions, and it's hard to see, but those are kind of the things the cities were trying to go through.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Judy.
You suggest perhaps replanting with a different type of tree. What type of trees would you recommend?
Yeah, I can maybe share with Breck. I don't know if there's a good email address. We have a recommended tree species list I can share with you. There's quite a few. There's some that are, if you wanted to attract pollinators, there'd be a great list to attract using trees that are great for pollinators. If you wanted dense shade or sparse shade, we have all those kind of broken out so you can make decisions. I would recommend a large shade tree. As you saw or heard, we really like to get big shade trees whenever we can. Oaks are great. Locusts are nice. Some people like those because you don't have to rake as much because they have little leaves. And so raking's not as much. I love a sycamore tree. but some people don't. But I just think they're huge and beautiful and majestic. There's a lot that you could choose from. After I lost my elm tree in the backyard, I planted a tulip tree, which is the tallest hardwood in North America. And they get these kind of green, yellow, orange flowers on them once they get a little bigger. And it's a very beautiful tree. So I can share that list, and you could ask any specific questions that you might have them about those.
Yeah, Leslie, if you want to send that to me, I can get that out to this
Okay.
group.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect. Awesome. Any other questions from folks? Oh, go ahead, Sue. Yeah.
No, go ahead. If Linda has one.
Linda, did you have a question? Oh, nope, just
scratching
scratching her head.
Okay, just quickly, I know our neighbors lost a tree during the Duray show last year, and they were wanting to replant right away, but were told that they could not for like a year or two. Is that correct? And is there a certain distance? Because as I hear you talk about replant now after taking it down, is there a time frame that has to be met?
No, and I'm not sure what the thought would have been from who took it down. Maybe they thought more of there's going to be a lot of roots that you're having.
That was it. It was the
Yes.
roots.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, there will be lots of roots there. I planted a smaller tree, so I was able to like dig until I found a spot without that much roots and get my tree in. If you're digging down and you hit a root, excavate around it and just cut it. This is what we do within the city right away. We hit a lot of roots. We use a saw and we cut off that chunk of root and we plant our tree. There's lots of other roots that help support that tree. But where they've lost it, it's probably that root system and the tree's gone anyway. So they can just remove it and get their tree planted in there. That's more important to me, getting a new tree, than waiting for the roots to, that's going to take forever, more than a couple of years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good questions. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. I look forward to getting the information from you. We appreciate your time and your expertise to share with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
We
everybody.
hope-
Appreciate it.
Yeah, if anybody else wants to stay on and socialize, you're more than welcome to. But Leslie, thank you so much. And we'll be in touch all with details for the August meeting. Have a great day. And welcome, Diana. Thanks for joining us, first timer. Woo!
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Stay cool out there, everyone.